Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, we can do better than that. It's hot outside. But we can do a lot better than that. Good afternoon, everyone. That's much better. I want to thank Ms. Easterday and her husband for being here and for those words, and of course for Gina. Gina is a talker. You would not see that now, but she is that, and I was surprised when she was so short. I want to welcome you to the Boyd Vance Theater. Just a quick personal note. Boyd Vance was a personal friend of mine, Boyd Reginald Vance, as he liked to be called. He was a singer, a performer. He was a genius. He was my friend. He was a teacher. He was a creative spirit. You would sometimes find him in Esther's Follies or Zach Scott Theater or with Pro Arts Collective. He taught me so much about how to have heart. Boyd was unapologetically gay, and to be a black man who was unapologetically gay gave him the strength to do all of the things that he did. And that heart, big as Texas, finally took him out several years ago. So I just want to make sure that you all know that his spirit is still in this place. So welcome to the inaugural State of the District address. Now, I got to thinking about this a couple of weeks back, and I thought, well, you know, the President gives a State of the Union address, the Governor gives a State of the State address, the Mayor gives a State of the City address, and you know, we're the size of a small town in District 1. We should have a State of the District address. So thank you for participating in that fantasy of mine that we are having this State of the District address. Let us begin with some history. District 1 was created when the 10-1 plan for geographic representation was approved by Austin voters in 2012. And although we're here to discuss the district, it is not separate from the city of Austin. It is an integral part of the city. It is our part of the city. District 1 is almost 4 years old, just past the stage of a toddler. And we, the voters, and about 70,000 individuals who live in the district, we have a responsibility to nurture the development of this district. All of us have an obligation to assure that the district continues to mature, to thrive, and fulfill its purpose. That purpose is to be the vehicle by which the people are represented on the Austin City Council. The promise of the district comes from the voters. Before 10-1, Austin had an at-large system with 6 council members and the mayor elected citywide by all of the voters. There were some unique drawbacks to the at-large system. The major drawback was that individuals did not have clear representation on our city government. And when everyone is responsible, no one is responsible. For years, the majority of the council members lived inside central Austin. Today, each district has its own council member, and that person lives in the district. So whether I see you at H-E-B or Whataburger or Ross Dress for Less in Capitol Plaza or Sally's getting hair products or Rick's getting my cleaners, because we don't have cleaners, a lot of cleaners in District 1, so I have to go to 4 to get my clothes cleaned, then you're able to reach out to me and talk to me about what your issues are and your concerns are. And that is encouraging to me. The district is about 46 square miles from north to south, east to west. It contains Austin's oldest institution of higher learning, Houston Tillotson University, and it contains, parts of it contain the largest institution of higher learning, the University of Texas. We have major attractions in the district: the French Legation, the State Capitol, the State Cemetery, the Carver Museum, where we are today, and the Asian American Resource Center. There are four independent school districts: Austin, Del Valle, Manor, and Pflugerville. We have many major employers in the district: Applied Materials on 290 and Samsung on Parma Lane. We have some wonderful local employers: ABC Home and Commercial Services, Balcones Resource, and Brown Distributors are located on Johnny Morris Road. And we have some great local small businesses. Places like Black Butterfly, where I get my products, and Gourmands, and Roland's Seafood, and Country Boys, and Altitudes. Mi Madre's, East Side Cafe. Sam's Barbecue has been there for over 30 years. And so we continue to maintain and encourage small businesses. We also have the Vortex, but we used to have more, but creative spaces have gone and been converted to other entities. We experience major congestion on our corridors and cut-through traffic in our neighborhoods. There's very limited access to public transit, but there is some good news. And good news is that the construction of Highway 183 South is on schedule and under budget at this point. So we're going to keep, it's not going to be MOPAC. Trust me, it's not going to be MOPAC. The district's birthday, that's a nice sound. The district's birthday was January 6, 2015, when the new 10-1 City Council was sworn in. I am humbled and honored to be the first to represent the district. Geographical representation is important because now the blended family, which calls District 1 home, has a direct line to city government. As the district matures, we will begin to see more benefits of geographic representation. But now we must be aware that we are living through a transition from how we used to be represented on city council, how we are represented today, and how we want the district to be represented in the future. This is our district, and we are responsible for setting the tone and the role it will play in the city. I am confident that my major foundational contributions to the birth of this district has been my focus on community engagement. Initially, individuals had no idea who their council member was, and for good reason. Under the at-large system, there was no council member who was ours. We had to literally go to all 7. Our values and concerns had not been part of the conversation, nor part of the policy decisions which were important to and impacted our community. The unintentional negative consequences were not discussed or even considered when policies were being made. To gain the benefits of geographic representation, our community had to know that they had a council member who represented them, all of them, regardless of their party affiliation, from Democrat to Republican, Green Party, Liberal, Libertarian, no party, all are represented. So during that first 2 years actually, I visited places of worship, attended community meetings, and met with neighborhood groups throughout the district to listen to their issues, their ideas, their hopes and dreams for their neighborhoods and for their families. The places that I could not schedule, district staff were present, and the staff spent a good deal of their time connecting with people throughout the district. And I want to take just a moment to introduce you to your district staff and outline some of their responsibilities. Now, please understand that everybody does constituent services. I answer the phone, I make my own copies, so we all do the work of the district, but these people have special emphasis. Andre Ewan, who is up at the top. Andre, could you stand up, please? His focus is on the constituent services because he's the first person to answer the phone, but he also has topics from animal services to parks and recreation. Beverly Wilson, Beverly is right back there. under the exit sign. She's the chief of staff, and she keeps the office organized and keeps me on track. Make sure I get where I'm supposed to go, when I'm supposed to go there, and have what I need. Chris Hutchins, he's right back in the back under the blue light. Chris is the development, planning, and zoning guru and other things that may come up that we throw on his desk. Genoveva Rodriguez, you've met before. She's not only our media and communications point of contact, but does all things transportation, from Capital Metro, the mobility bond, to the green line that we continue to try to get operational. Sophia Williams, she's over on that side, in the back. Sophia Williams supports the Health and Human Services Council Committee that I chair, and crunches the numbers during the budget session, which will start in August. The outreach was critical to build the necessary relationships with the people of the district, to make sure that they knew who their council member was and ensure that they knew how to engage their city government. The outreach and relationship building were necessary so we could start to begin to undo the benign neglect, I'm going to say that again, the benign neglect of the at-large council system. With that background, let's address the state of the district. I think it's fair to say that the district is in transition. The largest transition for the community and for city staff, believe it or not, has been from the at-large, transferring from the at-large system to the geographic representation system. Culture change is really difficult, and when you've been accustomed to doing business in the same way that you've always done business, it takes a while to shift to now you've got district representation that you've got to have conversations with before you make some of the changes. That's the same thing holds true for lobbyists. They're having a difficult time figuring out the difference in being in an at-large system and at-large single-member district system. The district is also experiencing other transitions that will impact the future. Unparalleled population growth, demographic changes, zoning changes, budget growth, and rising property taxes. We must all be aware of the changes and the impact of those changes, not only on our families, but on our neighbors. A big transition that you've heard a lot about is the wholesale comprehensive rewrite of our land development code, known as Code Next. Let's take a moment to address the history of land development codes and plans in the city of Austin. In March, I brought to the attention of the public the 90th anniversary of the Austin's 1928 master plan. That plan purposely created a Negro district where we are sitting today. And that small brick building that you can see when you leave is the Genealogy Center, was the first Negro branch library, and that was built in 1926, and it was housed on 9th and Guadalupe Street. After the 1928 plan was passed, they moved it over here in East Austin in 1933, and it was the Colored Branch Library. We're really fortunate to still have that piece of our built environment available so people can use it, the genealogy, and also be able to see what it looked like as a small branch library. The plan purposely created a Negro district, and that plan confiscated property from minorities who lived throughout Austin and forced them to move east of East Avenue, which is now I-35. As I stated in my op-ed, the 1928 plan was the architecture of a city for which Austin City Council wanted land for the growing center city and a city without minorities. Minority rights and minority wealth were sacrificed for the greater good, as defined by Austin's powerful. Today, in my opinion, a similar change is occurring. The legal forces of the 1928 master plan have been replaced by economic forces. Economic forces the city either encourages does not discourage increased density, increased value of the land, and population growth. The 1928 master plan was a land use plan. Code Next will be the latest iteration of city land use plans. However, Code Next is about more than just zoning. Zoning includes how many living units you can place on a lot, how large you can build a structure, whether you live up in the clouds or whether you have a small starter home where your children and dogs and chickens can play. Now I don't want to start talking about those dogs, because the dogs are really, the dogs are not trained not to go in people's yards or on the sidewalk, and their owners are not trained to pick it up. So that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. I hear you understand that. Code Next also addresses flooding. It addresses transportation issues. It addresses parks and open spaces. It even addresses billboards and signs. Code Next is also about how our city defines the word community, how it defines neighborhoods. Is it where all people look the same? Is it a geographical area? What are the common values that we talk about when we talk about a community? Just like the 28 plan, it is my opinion that the 2018 plan is a way to separate landowners from their land. Property taxes are going to increase whether the Land Development Code is adopted or not. Under Code Next, many more people will be unable to afford to live in the district or pass down inherited wealth through their land. How many people remember the American dream after World War II? Anybody? There's some folks that remember that, where we were encouraged to buy a piece of property, and then you could leverage that property to put your kids through college, to get your next larger home after you had more children. You could do a lot of things with that property, but it appears as though that's not going to be an option for people who have lived in this community for generations. I'm like my daughter's the third generation. There are many families who have 5 and 6 generations that property is passed down to. Code Next is such a big change in so many ways that I believe that voters should have a say on its adoption. I support the citizens' petition, which would require a waiting period before adoption of any land use plan, and also gives the voters the right to accept or reject such a land use plan. I am a supporter of planning for the future, because the district is going to continue to grow and change over the next 20 years. However, we the people have a voice in guiding those changes. Another major transition that will impact the district is how we as a city decide our annual budget. My primary focus has been twofold: more investment of public resources in our community and focusing expenditures on outcomes rather than how much money was received or how much money was spent. Helping to control how much the city spends. The budget is when the council must decide 2 competing but important factors: how much we will raise property taxes and how much the city will spend and on what. Balancing those 2 important items is going to be a tough decision, and that process starts in August. Just like people balance their bank accounts online and at home, where I do mine at the kitchen table, the city must take a balanced and fiscal responsible approach to budgeting. I could not support last year's budget because it increased city spending. It did not invest enough resources in our community, especially the infrastructure needs, and property taxes are going to go up. I talk about infrastructure. That's not a sexy conversation to have. That's not something we talk about often. But Walnut Creek wastewater treatment plant that some of you may know is out on Farm to Market Road 969. That treatment plant was built in 1973. Wastewater comes from northwest Austin all the way down to Walnut Creek. They have two pieces of equipment that separate the organics from the non-organics. I think you all get my drift. One of those is broken, and it's been broken. So we're working on one of those machines. They're so old that they can't find replacement parts for the other one. As Austin continues to grow upstream from northwest and into the East Austin area, we're going to need at least two to begin to continue to do the work that it was to do. That's the kind of infrastructure that we have put on the back shelf. We're also talking about water lines, sewer lines, streets that are getting really bad and crumbly. But those are the kind of infrastructure that we never talk about because we talk about the other things. The first budget transition is the change from being focused on center city, because remember, most of the council members were from that area, and most of their efforts were focused in that area, under the at-large system, to meeting the needs of the district under the 10-1 system. We must assure that the district gets its share of city spending. That hasn't really happened in the past. There's something that the 10-1 system gives us the power to do. And that's why your voice is important during this budget process. The second budget transition is to focus city spending on what's important to the people, ensuring positive outcomes while also controlling city taxes. Many tax dollars are spent outside our core responsibilities. Focusing spending and controlling costs is important because the money comes from us, from the taxpayers, from renters, property owners, and homeowners. The taxpayers are the source of the majority of the general fund dollars. Austin's 2018 city budget is about $3.9 billion with a B, dollars. And examples of how the district benefited from the prior budgets include funding for Jump On It, a youth-targeted summer program, the seats, the very seats that you are sitting in now and have been reupholstered, funding for equipment improvements for the Millennium Youth Entertainment Complex. The Millennium has the only, I call them a picture show, what do we call them now, y'all? Movie theater, okay. The only movie theater we have in District 1. And they can't show films because they still have reel-to-reel and not digitized. But with the funding, we will be able to get them up to speed, and then we can go back and see movies on Hargrave Street. Restoration of program funding for the George Washington Carver Museum. Funding for the Asian American Resource Center Master Plan. We provided drainage improvements with property buyouts to mitigate flooding near Walnut Creek in the northern part of the district. People think the flooding only occurs in South Austin. It doesn't. It's occurring because of the impervious cover. It's occurring way up in the north end of the district, so we were forced to have homes that we bought out. We funded a master plan for Walter E. Long Metropolitan Park, 8,000 acres of prime real estate. That, by the way, was purchased or gotten by eminent domain from people who look like me. So if you drive through there, you'll see names like Hollywood, Holloway Drive. Those of you who lived in Austin know Dr. and Mrs. Mildred Holloway. Dr. and Mrs. Mildred Holloway were very active in our community, very politically active. One of those streets is named after the Holloways. And so again, that's how Austin has grown and how Austin has used its power to separate people from their land. We also participate and are always cognizant of using quarter-cent funds and the 2016 transportation bond to meet mobility needs throughout the district. Not what staff think we need, but what you all think we need. And there is a difference. There's a reality on the ground that sometimes staff don't comprehend. And then we reconstructed Blue Glen Road, where the whole roadbed was washed out, and that was the main connection from the neighborhood to Grand Elementary School. And our Public Works Department did an amazing job to get that back up and running. Did we accomplish all of that on our own? No, of course not. We were helped by other council members, city staff, private individuals, and community groups. Did we achieve everything we wanted to achieve? No, but our efforts should be a solid B+. Progress made, but room for continuous improvement. We must always, always remind the city that we demand equity. Equity is something that we have not had much luck in the recent past. It's my opinion that it is important to focus on the core responsibilities of city government and to resist overspending on the big ideas and aspirations, the wishes, if you may. Big ideas are important. They can inspire and can set direction. But some big ideas also take our eyes off the basic services that people expect from their city. Those little and not so little things that makes Austin livable for everyone. The people of the district pay for those services, and it's important that we spend their money carefully, thoughtfully, and appropriately. In 2017, the average Austin homeowner paid $7,600 in property taxes. Austin property taxes have risen over 20% in 5 years. And let's be clear, property taxes, the increases in those are the major force driving residents, historic and recent, not only out of the district, but out of the city. The core responsibilities of the city as defined by our city charter are to provide public safety, assure public health, provide infrastructure of streets and utilities so your lights come on when you flick the light switch, and when you get a glass of water, it's not full of lead. Provide parks and green space, and protect and serve. As a city, we may have other desires, but we must not let those desires either compromise the city's core responsibilities or overly burden individuals with taxes, fees, and costs. In addition, the city should not spend tax dollars that people can't access, can't use, because they don't know about it. My example is the Nature Center that Parks Department operates. They have a wonderful little preschool for 4- and 5-year-olds. I have lived in Austin most of my life. I never heard of that preschool until last budget session. Because if I had, I would have been able to put my kids into that preschool. But all of our property taxes go to fund that preschool, but it's used by a select group of people. We've got to stop that. I hope we stop that. So those are the 3 major transitions I see facing the district. Shifting from an at-large representation to district, managing growth in the future through a holistic redesign of the Land Development Code, and administering both sides of the budget while holding down city spending to manage the impact on taxpayers. But there are other important transitions in our district. Assuring justice for all is a primary one. I realize that there are multiple ideas to achieve justice for all. Our district is especially interested in the relationship between the community and the police. Let me be clear. I am appalled by police that are racist and biased. And in my 2016 op-ed in the statement, I explained how, as a mother of a son, I've experienced the tension between law enforcement encounters in my community and the city. I wrote, 1 week began with the execution of Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge, followed by Philando Castile's murder in Minnesota. Then 5 peace officers were executed in Dallas, 84 individuals killed in France, and 3 officers in Baton Rouge. I am numb at this total disregard for human life. In the same op-ed, I pointed out a personal example of apparent bias by Austin Police Department. A young white student climbed over fences in the neighborhood, fell asleep intoxicated on my front porch. Police responded to my location. They woke him up, they called a cab, and they sent the student on his way. I wrote, I want you to think about what would have happened to my son, who is black, bald, physically fit, and has earned several degrees. If he had attempted to climb over 2 fences and was found sleeping on someone else's porch in another part of town, I submit that if he was fortunate enough to have not been shot by the property owner, he would have been placed in a patrol car, not a cab, and taken to jail. I followed up with the police, and the department justified the handling of the incident. Was there bias? All you have to do is look at the statistics about the disparities in the arrest in black and brown residents and their white counterparts. So I'm dedicated to discussing, addressing, and finding ways to end racial disparities in policing in Austin. I also know the other side of justice for all. It's important to walk a mile in another person's shoes. And so my first year on council, I attended the Austin Citizens of Police Academy 1 night a week for 14 weeks to have some sense of the work, the complexity, and the dangers of policing. I learned that the police department is more than adequately trained in law enforcement policies and procedures, and the majority of officers try to do the right thing. In my opinion, there is a difference between enforcers of the law and peace officers who act more in keeping with the objectives of community policing. I also learned that I would have made a terrible police officer. In simulations, I was shot twice because coming from a social service background, I was trying to talk everybody down. So anyway, I know that was not my career path. Policing is hard, y'all. Public safety is a key function of city government. However, policing must be fair. It must be transparent. It must be accountable, and it must be affordable. A final point about looking at the 2 sides of this transition of justice for all. My son, whom I described in that op-ed, is in fact a member of the law enforcement community. And yes, when he returns to Austin, I still give him the talk. Another transition in the district is the changing demographics. Population growth will continue regardless of home prices, land use changes, or congestion. Seems like we get congestion no matter what we do. This is an aside. I'm never going to be riding a bicycle or a scooter. Please understand that. I'm going to have to take the bus or the car, but it seems like we're all being kind of forced to ride some other form of transportation. And I can't ride Uber and Lyft because I don't have a smartphone. But my staff is working on that. We will have more people, more ethnicities, more religions, and more types of people that need to be incorporated into our community. A few weeks ago, I attended a citywide iftar, the traditional meal ending the fast during Ramadan. The event exemplifies how our population is changing. The iftar was hosted by the Austin Muslim Civic Ambassadors at the Asian American Resource Center. And next year, if you haven't attended, I suggest that you try to attend one. The district should welcome our new neighbors. The city may help us with this, but the primary responsibility is with each of us in those neighborhoods. And as neighborhoods begin to change, people need to be comforted when saddened by the loss of friends, should be helped to understand that change is constant when they're angered by the changes, should be supported and helped when they feel marginalized and damaged by those changes. We need to know each other as people, as human beings, as neighbors. If I needed additional proof of the changes that are experienced in this district, you all know those cargo cars? Has anybody seen the cargo cars, those little blue and white ones? Few people know what I'm talking about. Last week I walked out and there was a cargo parked in front of my house. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. It was a Mercedes-Benz. So I started singing in my head, the east side is moving on up. Remember that? Couldn't get it out of my head all day. We're moving on up because that was a cargo Mercedes. So the district is going to have to remain tolerant and vibrant, and we must attempt to welcome new people into our ever-changing blended family. We all have a responsibility to learn about our neighbors, to better understand their humanity, and accept their truths. The final transition is regarding people experiencing homelessness. Homelessness is a complex issue and has many facets. It's not a district issue. It's a city-wide issue. Every district is having issues with people who are homeless. We can reduce homelessness if we are willing to learn what causes it for each individual and then take effective, pragmatic actions to mitigate the causes. I regularly engage people who live under our bridges and on our undeveloped property. Many of the individuals I meet have been discharged from state facilities. The Austin State Hospital, which serves 39 counties, or the criminal justice system. 42% of the individuals who are living on our streets look like me. When I engage individuals, wherever I find them, I listen to their expressions of what they need. Some say they want a job. Some want to kick a habit, but we're lacking beds for either substance abuse and behavioral health services. Has anybody visited the Community First Village run by Mobile Loaves and Fishes on Hogeye Road? There you will find a group of dedicated volunteers addressing the issue in community with pragmatic, hands-on supports and some tough love. I'm convinced Austin can help a significant number of people out of homelessness, and I believe those solutions are plural. Solutions. Solutions must be pragmatic, results must be measurable, and solutions will require the state of Texas to increase funding to provide the necessary services for individuals discharged or released from state facilities. Now, if you look like me, and your ministry or passion is to deal or work with people who are living on the streets, let's talk after this is over, because there are some places that we can get you plugged in. It's hard to prioritize all the transitions because they are all ongoing and they're intertwining. The continued cultural shift, especially during on the city staff, from the at-large representation to district representation, managing our future growth with a holistic redesign of the Land Development Code and administering both sides of the budget while holding down city spending to manage the impact on taxpayers. There's justice for all and community police relations. The changing demographics of the district and the importance of knowing our history in order to shape our future. Understanding the many problems people have when experiencing homelessness and making sure that we include people with real life experiences in the design of the solutions. I know there are other changes we face within the district. For example, our segregated educational system in Austin Independent School District. I couldn't address them all today. I have done and will continue to do my best to address and help you address the issues that we face. The district was created to give our neighborhoods, all of them, not a piece of them, but all of them in that 46 square miles, a voice in city government. The district's voice is a combination of the council member, me, and engaged residents of the district, you all. That's the only way we're going to make a difference. If we listen to one another, respect one another, and work together, we can nurture and grow the district to maturity into its full purpose, to represent the people of the district on the Austin City Council. Together, we have improved the district and the city. Together, we can continue to make the district and the city even better. And I want to pause just a moment now and introduce at least 3 people that I have invited. Please hold your applause until after all of them have been introduced. These are the individuals who have filed for the election in November. And I see Mr. Louis Conway over here. I see Ms. Natasha Harper Madison right here, and Ms. Mariana Sales. She's right there. Let's give them all a hand. A special welcome to each of you. This is not unusual for me. After I won the election in 2014, I met with the other 8 members of the slate and asked how could I cover their issues. Because all of them represented a different constituent group. And so this is just a follow-on to that opportunity. I want to recognize my colleague, Councilmember Allison Alger, who's right here in the front. And I thank her for her support as these grueling days of summer go on. Are there any other elected officials that I was unable to see with the light shining in my face? Oh, there is, Travis County Democratic Chair Vince Hardy. Thank you all for being present today. I hope that I have encouraged you to stay involved and engaged. And if you're not involved and engaged, to get involved. At this point, all are invited to have some food and drinks in the hallway. Please do not bring any edibles back into the theater. We just had the whole seats reupholstered, and we don't really want anybody to spill anything on it. And what I want you to do, I want you to take a risk. Take a risk and meet someone that you don't know. Somebody that's not in your neighborhood. Somebody that you didn't come with. And talk about the things that you have in common. Not just the things we have that are different. I think you will find that we have more in common than we have differences. I want to thank you all again. Remember to stay hydrated and have a wonderful summer. I hope to.